Okay, so the thing is this. Yes, Jerome Boots Ennis and Terrence Bud Crawford is one of the hottest fights that can be made in the sport of boxing today. Yes, Jerome Boots Ennis just stopped the guy in one round less than Crawford did, which is the same guy Terrence Crawford faced as a tune-up before his long-awaited bout against Earl Spence Jr. And yes, promoter Eddie Hearn is very vocal about making a bout between Ennis and Crawford if you let him tell it sooner rather than later. But the fact of the matter is this. Terrence Crawford still has to get past Israel Madrimov come August 3rd. Like, I get that most expect Crawford to be victorious, being that he appears to be the more superior boxer, is the bigger name, and has a 40-0 resume that pretty much clears Madrimov's resume of 10 wins, 1 draw, 0 losses. But remember, this will be Bud's first appearance at 154, and the guy still has to go out there and get it done. Now, with that being said, I like to give my honest, humble opinion as to why I, as impressive as Jerome Boots Ennis is, do not believe he is ready for Terrence Bud Crawford at this very moment. And before anyone thinks I'm jumping the gun, understand this. Boots fans in particular understand that it's not because Ennis isn't any good, because he is very talented and that thump in his punch appears to be the real deal. It's not because he showed a bit of ring rust against David Evanesian and got touched up a few times, just as Terrence Crawford did himself during his bout with David Evanesian. Don't get me wrong, Ennis is very entertaining. He's a big motherfucker with some fantastic athleticism. It's just that as much as Eddie Hearn and his excellency seem to be making it their business to bring forth a future bout between Bud and Boots, as much as Ennis himself stands up there during the post-fight interview and casually makes the statement of "I'll fight Crawford" or whoever, although things do change from day to day, one thing we cannot do is forget. It's simply because during an interview before his fight on Saturday night against David Evanesian, when Boots was asked what his choice would be between becoming undisputed at 147 or facing Crawford at 154, his reply was he would prefer to become undisputed at 147 since that's been his main goal this entire time. And it's also added that he would still like to face Crawford, but that if he had it his way, he would prefer that to happen after he becomes undisputed at welterweight, with a Crawford fight possibly taking place around this time next year. He specifically said summertime, meaning Ennis is really in no rush to face Bud, and although some fans will bicker back and forth on that being labeled a duck, or even believe the notion that Crawford is the one who moved up to avoid Boots, what I'm receiving from all of this is Ennis has more of an is what it is approach when it comes to making a fight with Terrence Crawford. Like, he's open to facing Bud if that's what's presented to him next. But since he's already on his own path, and since Crawford already has his sights set on becoming undisputed at 154, this seems to me like a situation where Jerome Boots Ennis could be aware that he isn't quite on the level of a Terrence Bud Crawford, at least not just yet, and would rather buy himself some time to hype the fight up while gaining more experience, instead of rushing it and ending up being the Canelo to Crawford's Mayweather or the Fernando Vargas to Crawford's Tito Trinidad, if you know what I mean. Which is more than likely why in the same breath Eddie Hearn has made a more recent statement that he believes Ennis should focus on unifying the welterweight division before moving up to face Crawford at 154. And why we see Crawford tweeting this out to Eddie Hearn, because I'm sure from Crawford's point of view, he's not taking anything they say serious and more than likely feels that they're trying to piggyback off his name. Long story short, Crawford is telling Eddie that he's full of shit. I mean, that's the gist of it. And it would be hard to argue with anyone else who feels the same, especially since Eddie Hearn has basically contradicted himself. Now, focusing on the boxing and strictly the performance / way a fight can play out, to anyone out there who believes that Ennis stopping Evanesian in 1 round less than Crawford automatically means Boots is superior to or will beat Bud, listen bruh, anyone who knows boxing already knows that isn't how this whole thing works, man. And definitely doesn't tell the full story, because the same way some can believe that it actually plays a factor in the whole triangle theory is the same way others can point out how Evanesian faced Boots on just 2 weeks notice and was stopped due to the doctor calling the fight rather than being laid out flat on his back seeing stars the way he was when Bud got through with him. That's not to take anything away from Ennis, because he did indeed deliver and the statement was made, but all I'm saying is we can't afford to be delusional when differentiating the dynamic, because at the end of the day, every detail matters and nothing is a sure thing until both Bud and Boots share the ring with one another. So hopefully the ones we call Bud Buddies understand that if this fight doesn't get made sometime next year, when and if a fight does get made between Ennis and Crawford, it actually may come at a time when Ennis is in his legitimate prime and Crawford is already on his way out the door. So keep that in mind and cross your fingers that we see this shit sooner rather than later, because they are both on separate paths at the moment and so much can go on from here to there. In the meantime though, there is a dark horse out there that goes by the name of Virgil Ortiz, and if Oscar De La Hoya is serious about putting his fighter in there with the likes of these two, we could possibly see one of them, Crawford or Boots, coming across Ortiz before inevitably running into each other. Basically throwing another monkey wrench into the mix. Hop off.
If you had to choose between moving up 154 fighting Crawford, or you want to stay at 147 and get the other belts, what would you prefer?
I'm gonna collect the belts to be in the dispute at 47, then go to 54.
So that's your preference.
That's my goal. You know, hopefully, you know, we bang these fights right out. You know, and I'd be 54. You know, about maybe summertime next year. You know, or in the summertime.